I brought it up there and it still said it was connected to. Oh yeah.
We're back in general session, and we're moving on with the agenda and our presentations. Dr. Pullen, I will allow you please to give the presentation introduction.
Sure, thank you very much, Mrs. Collier. So I'm going to ask Mr. Barno and Mrs. Pagliatti to prepare. Mr. Barno is going to start with a budget update or actually not to start, but to continue our process with where we are for our proposed budget for the 23-24 school year. You'll know that at this time of year, things start to become more extensively explained, if that makes sense. And Gary and Megan will do a good job of sharing with the board and the community where we are and why the budget allocations are lining up in the fashion that they are. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Gary, so they can get started.
Thank you, Mr. Pullen. Okay, so 2 weeks ago we got our first look at our tentative budget, right? And we looked at four of seven major functional areas. So we're really picking up from there tonight. It's going to look formatically anyhow, much like we saw 2 weeks ago. So here we are, March 23rd. Next week, just over a week, we expect the legislature to pass our budget, which we're anxiously waiting on. We're hoping for no surprises there. We generally take our governor's aid numbers and go with that and hope the legislature might add a little bit more to the educational aid package. So we'll see where that stands, and hopefully they won't argue too much and get that budget passed. And the timing is always critical, right? Really tight, I should say. By the time the state passes the budget and boards have to adopt their budget. We've been in situations in the past where budgets haven't been adopted in time for school districts to legally have to adopt their budget and then go to the voters. So it's kind of interesting that the timeline there, right? So April 1st is when the budget is due. That's on a Saturday, so I'm not sure they'll come out with a budget hopefully on Friday or that following Monday, and hopefully it won't be late. So anyhow, here we are. And tonight we're going to look at these three areas: instruction, community services, employee benefits. So there's not a lot to community services here, but the other two pieces of the budget, you'll see, and you saw the same slide 2 weeks ago when we were just highlighting these areas that we're focusing in on tonight. So here's a side-by-side current year, next year projected budget of these three areas. And you can see there's not a lot of change here, really. And we'll talk a little bit more about instruction. Here's a breakdown of the current year, next year's draft budget, and how that lines up. So overall increase, just over 2%, very modest increase there, and in each of these areas, which I will ask Ms. Bowlby to talk to you about the highlights.
So this is the area of instructional budget, and there's parts under each area that I'm just going to talk about to give a little bit more detail. So under the admin and curriculum development, we are narrowing our scope of the approved paid curriculum proposals. We now have our curriculum articulation plan, and so the only proposals that will be approved are those that are aligned to what we're going to focus on for next year. That was developed by Leadership Council and going back to the buildings to see what the priority areas are in each building to continue our curriculum work. And through that, our administrators and school leadership teams have had a really clear focus on academics and the focus that their buildings are paying attention to are shared at the monthly Leadership Council meetings to ensure that each building knows what the other one is doing to support alignment and consistency. Under regular ed, that's an area where our students who performed most recently in the spelling bee, that comes out of that area. And then we also have a homeschool coordinator through BOCES. All the homeschool parents people who are providing the instruction provide the letter of intent to myself, and I look at those, sign off on those. But our homeschool coordinator at BOCES really makes sure that everything's in line as far as the progress reports they need to submit, the testing, and then works with us if students have not made progress, so we can send a letter out letting them know that they're on notice to give us a little bit more frequent progress monitoring to make sure students are really making the gains that they need to, even though they're homeschooled. Under special education, it's really been a priority to bring back students if we can meet their needs. However, we don't jeopardize students' progress and well-being if we don't think we can meet their needs. So really we just look to see if we have an appropriate program for them, and we balance out what we can provide versus what an out-of-district program might provide to meet their needs. Mrs. McLean and Mr. Matthews have been working closely together to provide alternative placements in the tutoring center for students who are awaiting placements. So there's a lack of placements right now for students who need out-of-district placements, and it's countywide, statewide, and so we had to be a little bit creative to provide programming for those students, and thanks to the flexibility of the tutoring center, we've been able to provide them with that. Under the occupational education BOCES, we have the number of students attending WTCC, P-TECH, and New Visions has increased from 60 to 75. This demonstrates the commitment that Mr. Barnum has to providing funding to align with our student goals of being career ready when exiting school. And then under special schools, that's where our summer school is. We're going to continue to host our own 9 through 12 credit recovery program. And then our K through 8 academic and enrichment program is going to also be held in district. And Mr. Barnum talked about that foundation aid, which is about $100,000 that does have strings attached to it of how we have to use it. They said that we need to provide services for 3rd through 8th graders, specifically in the area of ELA and math. And so we're going to put that money towards summer school to help students who need support in those areas, and to offer tutoring this summer for the first time for students who might need some one-on-one support. And then under instructional media, this is an area that we've really focused on equity, with providing technology to all students and hotspots for those who don't have access to internet at home. Mrs. Brower really has come up with a great replacement plan to make sure that we have what students and staff need for instruction as different pieces of technology age out so they can be replaced. Under this as well is our commitment to our athletes. We have new uniforms and again a replacement plan to replace them. However, we show flexibility. If they become worn out before it's time to replace them, we will do that. And again, in the area of equity, we are going to be getting some temporary dugouts while we're doing the work out on the soccer field. And when the actual dugouts are put in, those are going to be moved to the softball fields. For extracurricular, we have really tried to align this to student interests. And what's been really nice is since the middle school's back open, we're going to be having a musical there this weekend for the first time in a couple of years. And there's a lot of different clubs that are offered again now that the middle school is all back in one place. And the last area is our commitment to athletics. We're having 2 modified coaches for boys and girls basketball and 2 modified coaches for wrestling this year.
Thank you very much. On to community services, a small chunk of the overall piece of the pie, but an important one. This is really supporting our community swim program, the golf program, the fitness center, and safety and security through our SRO program. The SRO piece is the bulk of that money right there. So we're just seeing a modest increase there from year to year, 2.3%. Okay, then lastly, benefits. I think I just did that. So lastly is our benefits. This is a big chunk of our budget between the instructional program and benefits. That's about 72% of our overall budget. So, you know, we are a people organization, right? Salaries are throughout the rest of the budget. And here, our benefits are all accounted for in this one section, undistributed area of the budget. So with each of these pieces, I always talk about retirement and health as being our major cost drivers. So overall increase on benefits this year, 4.5%, much better than we had originally anticipated. So we were, I was shaking in my boots a little bit in the fall, but our health insurance rates came in much lower than before. I'll skip right down to those. Our health insurance is going up, that line 5.34%. So that is much better. Last year we were at around 12% increase overall on our health insurance budget. The employees' retirement system, that rate, and this is a blended rate. There's a different rate for each of the tiers of the retirement system here, unlike the TRS where you just have one flat rate. But our composite rate went from 13.1% to 15.1%. So that is, a 2% increase in the rate, but it really translates to over 12.25% overall increase. So just a little bit of fluctuation in these retirement rates have a big effect. The TRS rate dropped actually slightly. It went from 10.29% to next year's salaries will be 9.7% rate. And that's about a 5% drop. Only on that line, I actually have a little bit of increase. We've got an increase in salaries, right? And so we actually have a very small increase budgeted for, even though the rate went down a little bit. Salaries will be higher. Social Security, that 3.29% increase really follows our projected increase in our salaries. Workers' comp, we're fortunate to keep that at just over 1% increase. Unemployment benefits, we have a reserve, we budget a little bit money for our costs. We're able to bring that down a little bit to control our overall benefit costs. And I already, basically, the other, there's not much there, just a 4.5% increase. That's for our HRA and 403B type contributions. And then we already talked about the medical and dental. I think that's about all I had on the benefits piece. So that wraps up the instruction, community services, and benefits piece. So here we are. We will have our budget workshop coming up on the 6th. Hopefully the state budget will be passed. But our budget is pretty much in place right now. So that's what it looks like. And we're happy about this budget. We're proud that we can present a budget that really meets our goals. Keeping below the tax cap, minimizing our tax rate increase, minimizing that budget-to-budget increase. We always look to maintain our good programs or see what we can do to enhance it. We've done that with this budget. We're continuing on with our bus replacement schedule, providing for school safety, and continuing that capital outlay appropriations where we get aid on those projects the following year. So that's a very nice thing for us to continue doing. And here's what we've seen before is our budget timeline. So we'll be talking about this more in a couple weeks. Any questions? Yes.
How many SROs did you budget for 3 of them or one of them?
We have budgeted for 3 and we're pushing for 3.
Okay, and then I had a question for Megan, but if you want, it was, when we were talking about special ed, it sounded to me like it was kind of a temporary situation when we had some students here, we were waiting for an IEP, and we were waiting for a different school to open. So my concern is, are we covering that? In other words, are we planning for that? It sounds like we're saving money by having them in-house right now.
Right.
So are we planning for them to move out?
We really have to budget for certain contingencies with the special ed budget. One student can be such a big dollar amount. So we do anticipate some fluctuations. between private tuition cost and students that we send to BOCES, as well as what we're, we anticipate what we're able to, what classes we have in-house. But those are the fluctuating items. So, we're prepared to a certain extent. Hopefully we don't have 1 or 2 families with 3 or 4 disabled students come in, 'cause that would really blow our budget. But we do have a little contingency in there.
Thank you.
John has a question.
Yes. Are we, how many kids are we sending to P-TECH next year? Are we anticipate increasing it or stay the same? Or?
I think right now we have 3 currently enrolled, I believe. 8 at P-TECH? 8 at P-TECH.
And I think we're going up just slightly. Overall, at P-TECH, it has increased quite a bit, about 15% in that line.
That's great, thank you.
The 75 students at Wayne Tech and career is phenomenal, especially with the shortage in skilled labor. And they just had their open house last week for many of the families that are currently in programs. And we anticipate that that'll continue to grow. And honestly, Wayne Tech and Career Center is the largest high school in the county. It's only for 2 grade levels, but the numbers of juniors and seniors that they have surpass every high school when you add up their number of students. And that's a testament to what they're doing up there. And it's been a phenomenal output.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so great job, Gary and Megan. Appreciate that. So tonight I'm going to share with you an update on our North Rose-Wolcott 2025 plan. I was talking with Mrs. Collier recently, and she asked me to kind of update the Board of Education and the community on some of the achievements that we've been able to accomplish over the last few years. So when we started, or when I started in 2020, you'll note that strategic action plan was very different from the one I inherited. This one, those 5 core principles are reflected in our community promises that drive everything we do to benefit our students and our community. So in 2020, through my research and work with meeting with people, interviewing people, just day-to-day interactions, really 3 things jumped out to me that were necessary in terms of the district's needs. It was fostering positive relationships, restoring relationships, providing relevant instruction, relevant materials, and things that were allowing our students to compete with the ever-changing economy, and being responsive to people's needs instead of reacting all the time, because those 3 things together really led to some probably negativity and some things that needed to be addressed in the district. And I believe at this point in time in my tenure here, I think you'll see some things that we've accomplished, and I'm hoping that one thing that you'll see aside from these 3 core topics is that we have a focus on quality now, we have a focus on sustainability, we have a focus on efficiency, we have a focus on accountability, but the thing that I'm most proud of, and it's not called out specifically here, is student voice. We have students that present to the Board of Education each month, we have students that participate on interview committees, we have students that interact with us on a regular basis to give us feedback. So the first chart you're going to note is one of the things that I told the staff in the opening in 2020 that was not acceptable was that our graduation rate was hovering around 80%. And I asked them to identify which one of them could accept that. And to their credit, no one accepted that percentage. And we have a very quality and committed staff to our community and our children. And I'm pleased to say that over the last few years, our graduation rate continues to increase, and our focus continues to be pushing toward that 100% commencement outcome. Even though we know there are a lot of challenges with that, our goal should be that every student that enters crosses that stage. So tonight, I want to just go through a few areas, and I will tell you up front, I broke every rule that comes to mind when creating a PowerPoint. Don't put too many graphics on, don't put too many words on, keep it succinct and just speak to it. So I promise you I won't read each and every one of those things, but I want to let you look at that, and I'm going to call out a few areas that I want to highlight for you. And I also want to remind you that in some instances, the items that are on the slide are represented in multiple arenas because they impact multiple things. When I started, it was during the onset of the pandemic. And you'll recall that the governor and the commissioner gave us 30 days in the month of July to come up with a pandemic plan and a reopening. And I was welcomed with an eager team on July 1st. Everybody was gung-ho, and then on July 2nd, I was the only employee in the district because everybody took a vacation. So I was sitting there sweating a little bit, thinking, how are we going to come up with a plan and open our school in September? And I will say, to the credit of the administrators and our staff, we did it. So that's one piece that I want to say right out of the gate. We had a very responsive plan. It was well thought out. It was driven solely based on North Rose-Wolcott students' needs. We weren't competing with our colleagues in the county or in the region. We weren't pushing to be the first one with our plan that was done. And I think taking time and being thorough was to the benefit of our students. And many of the things that were represented in that opening plan are still existent today. And our students are well equipped and our staff is well equipped that if we need to pivot to a digital library, or if we need to continue to tweak our curriculum apps, our assessments, and our scope and sequence, we can do it. And I think you'll see later on, having complete pacing guides is something that should be done this year. So that was a pretty big accomplishment. The school district improvement plan and the building improvement plans were things that I feel are noteworthy. Having an 18-month professional development plan created, I believe, is noteworthy because it allows our staff to focus on getting really good at what they're doing versus becoming a fruit of the month and changing just for the sake of change. And I think you'll see, based on our attendance in our professional development days, that we're about 95 to 97% attendance. We always know that people will take ill from time to time, our family members will take ill, but I believe that we're being responsive to our staff's needs, we're being responsive to our community, and I believe the product that we're putting out as a result is really solid. And we're coming up on that 18-month time frame where we'll be revising that and creating the next 18 months so that we're dialed right in and focused on what our students and staff need. You saw me talk about the revised strategic action plan, and then one thing that I think brings me a lot of joy is the expansion of our UPK program to now have a 3 PK program with AM and PM sessions, and then 3 full 4-year-old programs. That's quite impressive, all in-house. A couple of more highlights from vision and instructional leadership. We offered the first time a high school reading and math intervention specialist for our students that needed additional support. We created a year-long driver's ed program. It's all in-house as a board priority and goal. We reinstituted elementary instructional band, and as I mentioned a moment ago, those pacing guides will be completed this year. So moving on to operations, just a few highlights because I don't want to belabor the point, but really focused in on collaboration amongst our administrative team and our directors. So our established administrative council meeting brings every leader in the district together once every 3 weeks. We set our priority based on academics. Our directors have an academic focus. Our administrators have an academic focus. Everything that we do is driven based on the classroom, whether it's from meal preparation, clean and inviting facilities, transportation, or just day-to-day instruction. Every one of our administrators knows priority one is teaching and learning. That's something I'm really extremely proud of all of our team for. A couple of other things that benefited our students in our district in particular was we restructured our maintenance department and we restructured our food service departments. Now, in addition to the directors, we have senior leaders in those roles that can support our food service director and support our director of maintenance and operation. Those people are seen as resources. They're boots on the ground, hands-on people, and really serve to step in and provide leadership and guidance with some of our younger staff members, or I should say newer staff members in those particular areas. Our senior maintenance mechanic, you'll know, is our on-call guy who really is our eyes and ears in the field and will really address things. And with our, I can't remember, the food service supervisor position, she's also working with our cooks on a regular basis. She's working with Rita on a regular basis to create a menu that's well-balanced and intriguing to students to try new things. And it's also something where when it comes down to realizing efficiencies, she's working with the 3 kitchens to make sure that our milk orders, our food orders, our commodity orders are all the same, and it's a single source so that there's some efficiency there. And in many cases, Rita and Christina have filled in for absences regardless of the role. So those things have paid tremendous dividends for us, especially when it comes to providing our students with well-balanced and nutritious meals. Some of the other things in terms of resource management, we've redefined the budget process last year, and I think that you heard from Gary tonight and from Megan tonight. We have a more direct approach, a more linear approach, and we're trying to be more overt with where our money is going, and we're trying to be more reflective on a dialogue between the Board of Education, the community, and our administrators, and really tying our budget into those factors that we know every household is challenged by. While doing that, we were able to replenish some of our key reserves last year, one being the capital reserve for future projects, creating the bus reserve, or this year focusing in on replenishing that, which will be part of this year's budget. It's something, the asset preservation project that we passed in December of 2020, you'll know that's a no-frills project. We do get some benefit from an athletic upgrade, some concessions upgrade, concession stand being built, this particular auditorium being turned into a performing arts center. Those are things that are all reflected into that asset preservation project that happened in 2021. We've implemented new safety features district-wide to our physical plant as well as software, something that I'll be expanding on tomorrow in a presentation for Rural Schools Association and for 4 counties. We've also have a clear preventative maintenance plan now, which is something that I've been really striving for the last few years. And we have a gentleman in there and a team in there now that really are making that come to life. And I think, again, people can see where our priorities are and where our spending is going with respect to keeping a clean and inviting physical plant. And couldn't be happier than we are right now with the progress that we've made in a short amount of time. So moving on to personnel management. Again, working with the administrative team to create a clear cycle for review of probationary appointments. That was a priority in year one. We want to hire and retain the best possible people we can to benefit our students. We introduced new administrative roles in 2021. We were lucky enough that the Board of Education saw the need to secure a Director of Human Resources, and that's paid tremendous dividends for us. And we repurposed a former Assistant Superintendent role and repurposed it into a Director of Business Operations and Finance. So we're bringing the position back in line with what the community needs and can support. When it comes to governance and policy, just to hit a few areas there, I would say district-wide implementing quarterly data sheets for all 3 buildings, that's a pretty big thing for me. So we have reports that are generated by each of the building administrators that produce data on how our students are doing and how our teachers are doing and whether or not they're performing up to standard. And we have conversations with our building administrators about the trends that we see and really ask very specific questions about, the Tier 1 instruction and what we can do differently through the MTSS process. A couple of other quick items under this, really I would say, has been the collaboration with the Board of Education through board workshops, making sure that the board is apprised of everything that's happening, whether it was, some of the things that we're changing from an instructional program standpoint. Our budget workshop last year, the budget workshop we're going to have in the near future, and a recently completed buildings and grounds and facilities workshop that we conducted. Anyone need a cup of coffee and put me to sleep? Caffeine, anyone? Okay. So the next thing I would say is communication, public relations. When I started, the board was very clear with me. There's not enough of a commitment to communication with our public. So we really tried hard to work and reach out to our community. I believe we have a heck of an asset in Amanda Hogan, who works with us through BOCES. She's been an invaluable resource. Again, going back to that single source or single point of access when it comes to communication, you'll often see Amanda sprinting through somewhere with a big camera on her neck, and she's taking many pictures. She's dialing in on the social media outlets and pushing out a lot of positive things that are happening across our district. She's working with the administrators and the directors to collaborate and consolidate what they're working on. We have a uniform district newsletter, and really something that I would say I'm extremely pleased with is, and this sounds corny, but we have a district calendar that actually has pictures of our students' performance on there. It's not just used for communicating out all the different forms as it used to look. And I think parents and grandparents and community members love seeing our students' smiling faces on that. And a couple other things under this arena that are not really on there, but I think the Board of Education and community are aware of. We rebranded our logo in 2020 out of necessity, and we've got now 2 logos. We have a primary logo and a secondary logo, the secondary logo being the paw print, the primary logo being our cougar head. And that was very intentional based on some things that were brought to my attention in April of 2020 that we needed to correct and address. And most recently, we saw the installation of 3 LED boards, 1 for each of the buildings. Those items were all purchased through grant funds. Lastly, to kind of go through some of the big ticket items for our strategic action plan, we have a 5-year cycle. And in 2020, when we were taking the information in from our community and working with our community and some students and some staff, we created that 1-page document that I referenced at the beginning, just to highlight everything should fall under that umbrella, and everything that we should do should be tied back to some of those core principles. And once we implemented that, we continue to measure and adjust, and we'll do that for another cycle. And then in the year 24, 25, we have to figure out, are we going to adjust, implement, measure through revisiting, revising, and reauthorizing, or do we need a full-blown complete redo? And I believe that Megan talked to you earlier through the decision-making process with Leadership Council. A lot of those conversations are starting in terms of our focus, but whether we go to a full-blown redo is something that we're not quite ready to answer yet, because we're still in the implementation phase of the current strategic action plan. But I do believe that people are starting to see the benefit of a clear and consistent approach from our school district improvement plan, our building improvement plan, and really, again, going back to this here, you know, we're trying to give our students the very best every day in all ways, always. So that's that portion from the update of the plan for 2025. And then while I'm speaking, I just want to kind of highlight, the other day was a fantastic opportunity for us to go to the Board of Supervisors, where several of our student athletes were recognized, where proclamations were read. You've heard these names several times, but had a great experience. Love seeing our kids shine on a county level. Love seeing the recognition, and think that those smiling faces say a lot about how much we all have to be proud of at North Rose-Wolcott. So I will entertain any questions, comments, or short stories if you have any.
Anyone? Well, thank you, Mr. Pullen. This is a great overview. I feel like you've given us the umbrella and what you've done to achieve all of that. A lot of hard work and a lot of, on many, many different bases of what our school system is about. This is the base of the iceberg, I'll say, that all else was built on, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving back to the agenda. Under reports and correspondence, Paul, is there anything you'd like to comment on about the first read of the policies you're presenting here?
Yes, please. So for the benefit of the board, the first one, the registration of professional learning, there's not many changes on this policy. It's not a required one, but you can tell from what Mr. Pullen just said, in about 18-month professional development. Actually, the big change on this is we're changing development to learning. You're probably aware of that, Megan. So to me, it's like changing Dunkin' Donuts to Dunkin', but anyway, we think it's a good policy. It's got a couple of little changes on it. The next one, employment for retired persons, it's not a required policy, and but we think it's an important one, especially with the issues that we have in our country today and locally too, of just finding enough people to work, and certainly in our school district. So we think this is a valid policy. It had a couple of typos, and there was a limit in here that had a figure in it, and the figure changed, and so unfortunately what the rewrite is they don't put a figure anymore. They just put a title or a button, you know. What am I trying to say? Not a title, but a reference. So when the number changes again, we don't need to change the policy. The next one is a monster 15-page policy. Linda and John will remember that we just did this one. And so when you read through it, even though it's enlightening reading, there are very minor changes to it. So, and it's a required policy, and we really are so limited as to what we can do. We don't have any wiggle room on this. this is all directed to us, so enjoy that one. The next one is participation in graduation ceremonies and activities. It's a required policy to change their minimal. I'm sure you've already looked at it. And then the last one is just page 8 because there was a deletion on the student records. The student records in excess and challenge is a required policy. And it's just that we deleted the current Bill of Rights because it's captured somewhere else. Okay? Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paul. At this time, is there anyone, Tina, that's requested public access to the board?
No, there's no one.
Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda. Motion, please, to approve the consent agenda. John, Paul, any discussion? The consent agenda goes through page 4. All right, hearing no questions. All in favor of approving the consent agenda? Motion is carried. We are on page 4. Policies. A motion, please, to approve the policies that are presented for this second read. Paul and Tina. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Number 8, a motion please to approve the secret resolution presented here. Linda and John? Discussion?
Cindy, can I just have a minute to review it? I haven't had a chance to look at this
I'm
yet.
sorry, Paul, I didn't mention.
May I just have a chance to review it, please?
Oh, all right. Take a minute.
Thank you, Cindy. I'm fine.
Okay, good. Tina, will you call the roll, please?
Cinda,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Shelley,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Tina,
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Thank you, motion is carried.
Yes, motion carried. At this time, we have, in addition to the agenda, the board is receiving the green sheet addition. First, I need a resolution, please, to add this to the agenda. Jason and Shelley, discussion? All in favor of adding this to the agenda? Motion is carried. And now a motion, please, to add to the agenda the written agreement between the superintendent and an employee of the district. Motion, please. Linda and Tina. All right, any other questions upon reading that? All right, all in favor of approving this resolution? Motion is carried. We move to board member requests, comments, and discussion. Linda, I think you requested to approach the board.
Well, I just wanted to share the results of the hobby I had for the last 3 years for the Wayne County Bicentennial celebration. The Wayne Finger Lakes newspapers have produced a Wayne County Bicentennial magazine that is available at all the town offices, at the libraries. You can request them. There's great wealth of information. There's a lot of historical information. There's community events that go from wonderful. It's been a great experience because I've gotten to know a lot of the county historians. They're very dedicated people, and they work hard, and they're very interested in our past. And a lot of our students have families that have history here, so it's a great connection for students. So, hope you, if you're interested, they're out there ready for you to take in and do everyone. And refer to them. There are a lot of different, there's a lot of different activities no matter what your interests are. Even if you're a runner, there's going to be a 200-mile, week-long sign up, and that'll be taking place in August during the Wayne County, in August, it's going to be during the Wayne County, it'll be during that week actually, and then that particular event goes through every township, so many miles a day, and anyway, there are a lot of different events. I'll stop.
You'll be interested to know that one of the co-chairs of the whole thing is a former teacher from our district, Rose-Wolcott, who was a middle school instrument band teacher, and she's worked hard and long on it, and she's also taken the lead on the bicentennial of the original Wolcott town, which is actually our school district, encompassing Wolcott, Butler, Rose, and Huron. So she's a big lead on that. And at the opening program on the 11th, April 11th, there is a handbell choir that will be playing, and that is comprised of the whole choir is from North Rose-Wolcott area. So some of them has graduates, and some of them has teachers, and so we're well represented. Is there anything else, Linda?
Well, I forgot to mention too, you reminded me that in June, I think it's the 17th, there will be an old Wolcott celebration that used to be called the Strawberry Festival, and that is for all the 4 townships that were old Wolcott that encompass the school district, and that'll be taking place in the Wolcott Village Park. Hopefully, maybe students might play music. I don't know. There's opportunities for participation in that too.
Anything else? All right, how about good news? Paul?
I have a plethora of good news, I think. Got an article in the newspaper that's the Lakeshore, that Jackson Chase was named our February Wolcott Rotary Student of the Month. A couple of athletic awards. Basketball, Axton Paul was awarded honorable mention on the all-county basketball. And I'd like to say, as the baseball coach, if you'd like to see him crush baseball, come on out to our varsity baseball games, because he got honorable mention in basketball, but he's going to be awesome in baseball. I think this is Lydia McIntyre, is that right, Mark? Lydia McIntyre got women's all-county basketball 13. A couple of just notes that I picked up on this literacy night at the middle school on the 28th, and then that same night is college and career night here at the high school. And the concert was awesome. I don't know how many of you got to listen to it, but it was great. And then today, Ms. Rupp asked me, because she knows I won't be available on the weekend, if I would be interested in attending a sneak peek at Annie. And I don't know why I keep getting amazed at this, because every time I see these students, they amaze me, but it was just awesome. I'm sorry I'm not going to be here. I would encourage every one of you to go see Annie. And then more good news about our former students. Samantha Osorio Ortiz, of course, of our school, is named Dean's List at Mansfield University. Skylar Fox, a senior biology major, is on the dean's list of Des Moines College. And then an individual that some of you might recognize, he's close to my heart, our son Mike Statsky, who was attending Clarkson University, decided to graduate a semester early. So he had such a good background out of the school, he was able to graduate a semester early with distinction, and he was already hired as most Clarkson graduates are before he ever graduated. So all good news for students from our school. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And one last piece of good news. We're very proud of our superintendent, who tomorrow is one of the lead people at a conference of Cork County and rural schools. And so there are 4 of us who will be there to support him, and we're just very proud to have him be considered by others around as good as we think he is. So thank you for doing that on top of everything else that you do. That concludes the business of tonight. A motion, please, to adjourn. Tina and Shelley. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you for coming. Good night.